Magandang umaga po to over 100 participants here in Zoom and to everyone joining us via Facebook Live sa ating 189th session ng DTI Consumer Care webinar on Rules and Standards for Responsible Advertising or the mandate on English and Filipino translation for business and marketing materials or ang ating Department Administrative Order number 19-09 series of 2019 and Ad Standards Council Standards for Responsible Advertising. You can still invite your friends and colleagues to join this webinar and share the Zoom link. Bago po tayo magsimula, we would like to give some reminders. Unang-una po, ang ating webinar session ay recorded. By continuing your participation in the meeting, you are also consenting that you may be recorded. We are encouraging you po to stay at samahan niyo po kami hanggang matapos at sabay-sabay tayong matuto sa ating topic ngayong umaga. Ang mga sumusunod na reminders naman po ay para masiguro na smooth ang ating webinar session. Number 1, pakipalitan po ang format ng inyong pangalan. Maaaring consumer space, your full name o di po kaya ay pangalan ng company, then your complete name. Kung masyado naman pong mahaba ang pangalan ng company, kahit acronym na lamang po ang inyong gamitin. Number 2, please turn off your mic and video during the webinar session unless you are requested by the moderator to speak. Pangatlo, para sa mga tanong, we are encouraging everyone to click the raise hand button to directly address the speakers during the question and answer portion, or you may send in your questions through the chat box. At panghuli po, para sa mga naka-touch screen device, please avoid drawing or making annotations on the screen para hindi po madistract ang ating speaker at ang iba pang mga participants. Once again, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Sarah Margaret Hoson from the Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Without further ado, let us begin this webinar session by singing the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by the invocation.
Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansa. Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, pero sa siranalan, alam ng puso, sa dinig mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tulong sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinanang tulang, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nakikinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di makikinig, lumalang araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo, ang inigaya ng partay pag-amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing as we are gathered together in this webinar. May your blessings of wisdom and guidance be upon us all for the sharing and impartation of knowledge and skills by our resource speakers, facilitators, and moderators. Bless also the participants so that they would be able to glean the information from this activity and share what we have learned in the spirit of your generosity. Lord, we bring you our prayers, our commitment, our gifts to you this day. Let us who have a keen dedication and awareness of your creation have courage and conviction that we are able to contribute to the sustainability of the earth. Inspire us as we make choices so that we will recognize the impact our lives have on our environment and our human family around the globe. Pour out your blessings upon us today, Lord. May each of our actions reveal our awareness that we are partners with you in the creation and sustainability of this earth that you have given to us to appreciate and enjoy. We ask this in the name of your Son. Amen.
So good morning po ulit. And for today's webinar session, ang topic po natin ay rules and standards for responsible advertising. So to formally start our session for today, I would like to call on the Assistant Director of the Bureau of Philippine Standards, Sir Ferdinand Manfoste. Good morning po, AD Ferds.
Yes, good morning, Sarah, and good morning, our dear participants for today's webinar. Nagpapasalamat tayo, naimbitahan tayo ng Consumer Protection Policy and Advocacy Bureau to greet and grace this webinar for today. And we, of course, we are concentrating on rules and standards for responsible advertising, mandate on English and or Filipino translations for business and marketing materials. This is under DAO number 19-09, series of 2019. And of course, we also focus on the Ad Standards Council. Maintindihan po natin ngayon, ano po ba itong Ad Standards Council, which is responsible for, of course, for the advertisements and on policies regarding promotions of responsible advertising. And nakita natin sa mga participants po natin ngayon na marami po tayong from the private sector as well as from the regional and provincial offices po natin. Let me cite, of course, in the house po, ang director po ng Philippine Accreditation Bureau, si Director James. Director James, pakita ka naman sa mga participants natin. Good morning sa iyo. Good morning. May particular concern ka ba sa advertising, Director James? Director James is the director of the Philippine Accreditation Bureau. Siya po sila nag-accredit ng mga laboratory inspection bodies. Ano pa? Of course, ang atin pong director ng Consumer Policy Advocacy Bureau, si Director Marcos Valdez II. Good morning, sir. Andito rin po sa atin ngayon si Assistant Director Che Carbonell. Good morning, ma'am. And of course, later on, ang ating resource person coming from Consumer Policy Advocacy Bureau, ang ating Division Head for Consumer Advocacy, si Camille Castillo. Good morning, Camille. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Yes. Actually, natutuwa ako nakasama natin ang mga kasama natin, ang mga kapatid natin from the regional and provincial offices. Nakita ko dito some of the names ng mga kasama ko dati from the regions. Kasi ako nag-region 4A ako, Calabarzon. Ayan, nakita ko si Mila Mercado. Hi, Mila. Mila, nandyan ka ba? Ayan. Narinig natin. Nagparamdam na si Mila. Hindi mo natin siya nakita, pero nandyan siya. Ang mga taga NCRO, National Capital Regional Office, nandito rin si Beverly Jimenea. Bebs, kumusta ka na? So, yung mga taga-regions din natin, nandito ang mga taga 4A, 13, Region 9. We have Region 9, we have DTI Region 7, Region 5, Region 2, Cordillera Administrative Region CAR. We have Region 10. So all over the Philippines from Aperi to Hulo, nandito po ngayon at nagpa-participate po dito sa ating webinar for today. Kasama din natin ang mga ahensya ng DTI, ang Environmental Export Marketing Bureau, also from NGA, FDA, kasama din po natin ang BISMED, Kumusta kayo dyan, taga-Bismed? Mga members ng academe, tsaka private sector, nakita ko ilan dito, Benson, CW Home Depot, mga kooperatiba po natin, at mga iba pa nating mga kasamahan na stakeholders at mga consumer groups. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. At natutuwa kami na kayo nag-participate. Alam po ninyo, ito ay handog po ng ating bagong secretary. Ang secretary po natin na alam natin na who came from the academe, likewise, from UP, naging presidente po ng UP, Secretary Alfredo Pascual. At ito po yung kanyang priority through this sending or providing these webinars to all as many people as possible for education and further learning ng mga programa po ng DTI, particular Consumer Protection Group. Of course, ang ating namumuno po na Undersecretary for the Consumer Protection Group, kumusta naman po? Kumustahin po natin actually napapagaling po siya ngayon, si Undersecretary Ruth Castelo. Ma'am, thank you very much. And of course, sabi ko nga, handog po ito sa inyo ng Consumer Policy Advocacy Bureau through Director Marcos Valdez, Director Che Carbonell, of course, ang ating beloved Division Head for Consumer Advocacy kay Ms. Camille Castillo. Of course, dito po sa ating discussion later on, nasabi ko nga it will dwell particularly or focus on DAO number 1909. Ito po ay nagbibigay sa atin ng learning or further education on rules and standards for responsible advertising. The mandate on English and or Philippine translation for business and marketing materials. Ano po? Napakalaga po nito kasi we are now deluged with a lot of promotional materials or advertising materials in the midst. So kinakailangan pong alamin natin naman itong sabi nga ng mga taga-advertising world, truth in advertising is very important. Ito po siguro yung malalaman natin through the whole morning. And we wish that for your active participation to really, lalo na yung ating mga kasama sa regional and provincial offices, for them to be able to know better kasi ito lang po yung pagkakataon din natin to further educate and to further and deepen the knowledge ng ating mga tao in the region and provincial offices. At nagpapasalamat po tayo na nandito rin po sa atin ang from Ad Standards Council, si Ms. Digna De Santos, siya po ang Executive Director ng Philippine Association of National Advertisers of PANA. Good morning po, Ma'am Digna. At nagpapasalamat po kami that you have the time to share with us your learning or your knowledge about the advertising world and the requirements. Ano po, papasalamat po tayo dyan. And of course, the value of this webinar to our consumers. That's why papasalamat po tayo sa academe, sa mga advertising organization, consumer organizations, and a lot of cooperatives na nandito participating. But before I by the way, ako po ay Assistant Director from the Bureau of Philippine Standards, the national standards body. Ano po? At kami naman po ay in charge of implementation of standards on safety and quality for the Philippines. At we are into a lot of programs developing standards for various products that we see, particularly consumer products. But as always po, I always leave my greetings with a message. Ano po? Let me just share with you this beautiful message about particularly on lalo na tayo na nasa workplace po tayo. Alam po naman natin yung a lot of principles po dito sa sa ating workplace that we really need, no, na kinakailangan po na talaga natin na matutunan siguro. Let me just look for it. Ito po, ayan. Nakita ko na po siya. Ayan, nakita ko na po siya. Ito na. Let me share this one. Ano po? Ayan, ito. Okay. Okay. Principles in the workplace. Okay. Ito po, actually 10. There are 10 principles in the workplace na kinakailangan po nating malaman. No? Ito po. Okay. Let me just remove my antipara para mabasa ko lalo. Number 1, trust no one but respect everyone. Importante po to. Trust no one but we must respect everyone. Kasama po natin sa workplace. Actually from the top, from our superiors to the subordinates and our peers. Number 2, what happens in office remain in office. Never take office gossips to home and vice versa. Dapat naman po talaga na ang office is for work, trabaho, at ang personal po natin ay para sa bahay. So dapat magkahiwalay po yung dalawang yon. Enter office on time, leave on time. Your desktop is not helping to improve your health. Lalo na po ngayon na very stressful ang mundo. Kinakailangan po talaga na may delineation o talagang may hati talaga between work and our personal life. Number 4, never make relationships in the workplace. It will always backfire. Napakaganda po talaga nito. At talaga naman nangyayari po talaga ito sa mga opisina. No? Sabi nga, don't litter in your own backyard. Number 5, expect nothing. If somebody helps, feel thankful. If not, you will learn to know things on your own. Ayan po yung magandang learning ito na we really have to try and really mag-effort to know a lot of things, no. We must, although ang mga supervisors are there, pero we must not rely on them that much. But ang effort also should come from us. Number 6, never rush for a position. If you get promoted, congrats. If not, it doesn't matter. You will always be remembered for your knowledge and politeness, not for your designation. Ay, importante po yan, no? Na hindi po talaga sa posisyon yan, but nasa ating knowledge and politeness. Sabi nga, it is always gain, not being served to you on a silver platter. Number 7, never run behind office staff. You have better things to do in life. Dapat hindi tayo ma-overwhelm ng mga kung ano-ano mga nasa office, nasa trabaho natin. Marami po tayong mga bagay na dapat pang-intindihin. Number 8, avoid taking everything on your ego. Your salary matters. You are being paid. Use your assets to get happiness. Number 9, it doesn't matter how people treat you. Be humble. You are not everyone's cup of tea. Yung po para naalala ko yung miscongeniality rito. Number 10, in the end, nothing matters except family, friends, home, and inner peace. Napaka-importante po ng inner peace. Peace with ourselves and peace with others. So with that, let me again greet you a very good morning and happy participation po. And we look forward to your active participation, particularly on the Q&A dito po sa ating morning seminar on advertising. With that, maraming salamat po and good morning to everybody.
Ayan, opening remarks pa lang, pero talaga namang marami na tayo. Thank you po, A deferred. So for our session today, we are very fortunate to have not just one, but 2 capable speakers. So first, from the Ads Standards Council, and next is from our very own DTI Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau. So our first speaker, she Graduated cum laude from the University of the Philippines School of Economics in 1980 with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Business Economics. Prior to joining the ASC, Ms. Digna was the Executive Director of the Philippine Association of National Advertisers, or PANA, a position she held for 11 years. Then after, she was the Senior Business Unit Director for 17 years at the Kimberly-Clark Philippines Incorporated. She also worked in the marketing department of other big local and multinational companies. Currently, she is the executive director of the Ad Standards Council, a self-regulatory body of the Philippine advertising industry, which is responsible for the screening of ad materials and hearing of cases. Let us all welcome the Executive Director of Ad Standards Council, Ms. Digna Santos. Good morning po, Ma'am Digna.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for inviting the Ad Standards Council to this webinar. We're happy to present our topic, and later I will be presenting how the Ad Standards Council preserves Filipino culture and values. My colleague, Mr. Robbie Aligada, will be presenting the process and requirements of the ASC. Okay, so I'll be sharing now. Oops, sorry. Okay. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So what is the Ad Standards Council? The Ad Standards Council is a private, non-stock, non-profit organization composed of the various organizations in the advertising industry. And it is run by people from the advertising industry. As mentioned earlier, it is a self-regulatory body which implements the rules and regulations related to advertising. Pag self-regulatory po, it means that we police ourselves, no, to help ensure that the said rules and regulations are followed. Whether it is thematic advertising or brand advertising, promotions, advocacy advertising, the ASC promotes only truthful, honest, accurate, and decent advertising, and decent advertising. And mind you, responsible advertising does not just rest on ASC. It is everyone's responsibility. And first and foremost, it begins with the advertiser, which is the owner of the brand or the service. Now, who are our members? Okay, our founding members are the broadcast industry represented by KBP, the advertiser sector represented by the Philippine Association of National Advertisers, and the creative sector represented by 4As. That's the Association of Accredited Advertising Agencies of the Philippines. And later on, these were joined by the non-founding members, such as the Media Specialist Association of the Philippines, or MSAP. These are the media agencies who take care of ad placements of the various clients. The IMAP, or the Integrated Internet and Mobile Marketing Association of the Philippines. UPMG is United Print Media Group, so ito yung mga publications, newspapers, etc. And OHAP, that's the Out-of-Home Advertising Association of the Philippines. And what is distinct about ASC compared to the other self-regulatory organizations worldwide is the membership composition of ASC. It is not just only advertisers nor creators of the advertising, but we also have media as our members, which enables us to implement more strictly the rules and regulations to make sure that we observe responsible advertising. In other countries, kasi media is not a member, so they are having a difficult time. For instance, if an ad has to be issued a cease and desist order, they are having a difficult time implementing such orders. Okay, while the Ad Standards Council is a young organization, it was established in March 2008, no? So that makes us 14 years old. Self-regulation is not actually young, no? It is actually 48 years already, and just 2 years shy of its golden anniversary in 2024. So it started in 1974. So baka karamihan dyan sa mga audience were not yet born at that time. It started actually during martial law. And the group of advertising industry people are represented by, again, the media, broadcast media, the advertisers, and the creative advertising agencies went to government, no, through the Ministry of Public Information, and requested government to allow them to set up this organization. It's a self-regulatory organization, and government was actually very supportive of the idea, and that then was born the Philippine Board of Advertising in that year, and over time the name changed to the Advertising Board of the Philippines, or Ad Board. And in 2008, the function of content review was transferred to the Ad Standards Council. Okay. So what is our guide in evaluating advertisements? We're actually guided by several principles and laws. First and foremost would be the laws of the land. Example, the Constitution of the Philippines, the Consumer Act of the Philippines, Milk Code, Magna Carta and Women, so on and so forth. We're also guided by the Code of Ethics of the ASC, as well as the Code of Ethics of various organizations. For instance, the Philippine Medical Association, the Philippine Dental Association. Did you know that non-appearance of doctors in advertising is not an ASC rule? It is actually the PMA rule as part of their Code of Ethics. So that is why every time there is an advertiser which would like to use a doctor in its advertising, we need to refer them to PMA to secure their approval, because that is part of their code. Okay, we also take into account global and regional standards, such as the International Chamber of Commerce, World Federation of Advertisers, and in case of cosmetics, there is what we call the Asean Harmonization Guidelines. Okay, now, while we are guided by several principles, it is also, we'd like to let you know that it is not purely intellectual, not all facts that is being considered by the ASC. It is much like the brain, it has two hemispheres. One is for the intellect and one is for creativity. And ads do not just have to be from one side of the brain. The rules and standards of ASC is robust in accommodating both, making sure that not only is the content of ads screened to be truthful, but also acceptable in terms of sensibilities and cultural presentations. In fact, it's a balancing act. No, you have facts plus values, and in ASC, we'd like to let you know that we are not clipping the wings of creativity. Rather, we are allowing creativity to fly, but within the bounds of honesty. Okay, and you can see that in our guidebook, there are safeguards for both the advertiser's products and services, as well as protection of the general public in terms of sex, belief, age, physical condition, among others. So the left side, you will see certain provisions about on products and services, while on the right side, you will have provisions governing values, no, and consumers. And with the Philippines composed of more than 1,700 islands, our culture is very rich and diverse. And it is important to value this diversity and respect regional differences, it may be in terms of beliefs, characteristics, or customs. And we do have provisions in our code to cover these. So Article 1, Section 3A states that advertisements must endeavor to promote the improvement of the quality of life of Filipinos and promote Filipino values, customs, and traditions. And Article 1, Section 3B, advertisements must respect religious beliefs, be sensitive to the diverse religions, mores, culture, traditions, characteristics, historical background, and identity of the various Filipino communities, and uphold traditional Filipino family and social values. Likewise, the code also spells out the importance of our symbols, to respect and not to vilify the symbols that stand for our independence and events that have shaped who we are as a people. In our advertising, if a client would like to use, for instance, the Philippine flag, he must get an approval from the National Historical Commission. The same is true for the use of historical landmarks, because these must be presented in a respectful manner. Okay. Also, Article 1, Section 2D, the representation of Philippine currency in advertisement shall be governed by the BSP circular and must get BSP approval as well. So all of these are we in ASC, it's like a one-stop shop. No, we implement the various rules and regulations of the different government agencies to make sure that the advertisement that we allow to be produced are compliant with the various rules as well. Advertisements are powerful tools meant to evoke a response, a change in behavior or attitude, or sell ideas, products, or services. But advertisements must also be responsible, thinking of what is good for the consumer with presentations that are truthful, fair, and respectful. So it is not just all facts and all selling, but you also have to think about the consumer. You have to have a respect for the consumer, first and foremost by being truthful in what you say. So we in Ad Standards Council, our mission is to champion the truth and fairness in advertising within the context of local environment and within the constraints of the laws of the land. And all of us in the business of advertising have a responsibility to the public, to our consumers, and to one another. Now, as I mentioned, that is the first part of the talk. Now, my colleague Robbie will talk about the process and the standards.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am Robbie Aligada. I am the Ad Content and Operations Manager of the ASC. Thank you very much, Digna, for that wonderful introduction on ASC. So in terms of the process of screening, the ASC actually employs a very unique type of process wherein we have two stages, what we call the S1 and the S2. Okay. So in S1 or stage 1, this is when the submission of storyboards, scripts, or layouts are given to the ASC. And our role is to check whether the claims being made are properly substantiated, if the product or service itself is allowed to be advertised. We also do look for the proper documentation for that. And when the materials are applied to us, there are actually 4 documents that need to be submitted. The fully accomplished S1 application form, the promissory note, which will reflect the amount of the application fee, the main document or the ad proper, and a PDF file of the support documents. Now, as mentioned a while ago, there are 2 stages. The reason why we need to see first the storyboards, the scripts, and the layouts is because prior to production, it is best for the advertiser to know whether what they are going to say is allowable or not. It's going to be very difficult for them if they already pursue the production of the material and then later on it is going to be issued the CDO because it is not properly substantiated. So from S1, we now go to S2 or stage 2. This is now the stage wherein the final material is submitted to the ASC, and we will double check whether this final material is compliant with what has been approved as a storyboard, a script, or a layout. The end view of this is to be able to issue a clearance whether to air, to post, to display, or to publish. And in this case, there are also 4 documents for submission. A duly accomplished S2 application form, the copy of the S1 decision form for us to determine whether there are certain comments or notes that we will need to look at when we review the final material. Copy of the approved main document, which will be used as basis in reviewing the final material. And of course, the final material itself. Okay. Unlike in other countries, the Philippines has this unique 2-step process. In other countries, go ahead, you can already shoot your material, and then the complaints come later on when the material has already been produced and money has already been used up. Okay. Now, there are practically 3 main decisions that we give out. Okay, the first one is approved for production. And this is being given out when a product or service is legally allowed by the government to be sold, offered, or advertised. For the more known products or services, we normally do not anymore ask for the documentation because they have probably given already the documentation in earlier applications. But for new products or services, we always ask for this. Okay, whether it be the license to operate, the business permit, documentation from DTI, FDA, even promo permits coming from the Civil Aeronautics Board or the National Telecommunications Commission. If these are food or drug products, we will be asking for the CPR, or for cosmetic products, the Certificate of Product Notification. Okay. Then, if the content of the advertising is adequately substantiated, it will merit an approved for production. Also, if the material is compliant with all the required government laws and mandatories. Okay. Now, the second decision that we give is incomplete. This is when all claims are substantiated except that there are certain mandatory government requirements that are lacking. Example, but not limited to, would be the BSP or the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas certification on the use of money. There is a rule issued or a circular issued by the BSP insofar as how money can be shown in an ad. In fact, it is very specific as far as the size compared to the actual currency is concerned. Okay. Or if there is use of Philippine symbols like the flag, there is also a need to submit a National Historical Commission of the Philippines certification. Or for showing minors, which would be 15 years old and below, a DOLE permit must be submitted. Okay. Also, this decision is given when applications lack certain mandatory copies or statements that are not content related. Example, uh, if the ad does not contain, if symptoms persist, consult your doctor, or the ad does not contain the complete promo details, then we will give them an incomplete. And the applicant has 30 calendar days to comply with the comments made. Now, if compliance is not uh, done within 30 days, the application is deemed disapproved without informing anymore the applicant. The last major decision is, of course, a disapproved decision. And this is being done first when claims in the ads are not substantiated or supported. Secondly, when the ads violate the laws of the land, the provisions of the code, or certain circulars that have been issued, wherein claims then become untruthful or misleading, or if it goes against societal values. We also give this particular decision when the ad material patently violates government laws. Example, there is a law on um, uh, uh, that when you drive, you must always wear your seatbelt. Or if you're riding a motorcycle, you must always have a helmet on. So these are already laws, and these have to be shown in the ad material. If not, then it will be disapproved. Okay. So there are also what we call the must screen media. Okay. And when we talk about must screen, that means that even before the materials are implemented, no matter what they contain, no matter what type of ad material, if it is for broadcast, both TV and radio, and it is going to be displayed as an out-of-home material, the ads have to be screened first with the ASC. Okay. As far as print collaterals and digital materials are concerned, okay, generally, these three media are post-screen. Okay. The reason being is that there are so many ads that are being implemented in these media platforms. Okay. And if it is going to be reviewed prior to its implementation, it uh, it may be too much of a hassle for the advertiser. Okay, and we do understand that we always have to help them insofar as business is concerned. Okay, but there are certain rules in which even if the ads are going to be implemented in these three media types, they will still have to be pre-screened prior to implementation. And these are as follows. First is if the ad is a product that is part of the 5 must-screen categories. What are these? Number 1, over-the-counter drugs or home remedies, followed by food supplements, alcohol beverages, milk under the milk code, and promo fares for airline shipping lines and other transport services. The selection of these 5 categories are because either the product is ingested, and therefore it is very important that we determine first the truth and honesty and accuracy of claims being made. As far as alcohol beverages are concerned, it was a concerted agreement amongst the industry players to have themselves pre-screened because there is also this foreboding thing issue on alcohol beverages, advertisements for alcohol beverages being stopped. And that is what is happening in other countries globally. So in the Philippines, they banded together and said, okay, we will have ourselves screened before we even advertise. Okay. Milk is primarily because it is under the milk code. And it is also very important that milk products from infancy to just below 3 years old, they cannot even mention things like what the product is for, what it contains. There are certain rules that uh, say that these are the only things that can be mentioned in the advertisement of milk under the milk code. Okay. Now, there are also 5 types of must-screen claims. If the ad contains a number 1 or leadership claim, an absolute claim, comparative, exclusivity, or superiority claim, the ad must be screened with the ASC. And later on, I will take you through all these 5 types of claims. Okay. Also, if the ad shows direct comparison, although in the Philippines, direct comparison advertising is not even used. We have yet to see actually an ad that directly compares brand A or service A with brand B or service B. But this is actually allowed in certain categories only. Example, automotive vehicles, but this does not include automotive products like gasoline, brake fluids, etc. It has to be the vehicle itself. Consumer durables like audiovisual equipment, appliances, and the like. Aircrafts and the ship itself or the aircraft itself. Musical instruments, mobile products like handsets, tablets, and laptops. And the reason why these are being allowed to have direct comparison is because uh, the differences between the two is very measurable and the measurement is very exact. There is no area for interpretation. Okay? Now, other than the above, okay, as mentioned, print, collaterals, and digital are generally post-screen. Okay. Now, I mentioned a while ago the 5 types of claims, but prior to that, there are also other types of claims that we review in the ASC. Example, testimonial claims that do not relate to a product or service performance. An example is, I love the floral smell of your shampoo. In this case, what we only require would be a signed and notarized endorser or affiance affidavit or certification of actual product or service use or performance. Okay. Second, now is testimonials which relate to own product service. So on top of the signed and notarized affidavit, we will now require the submission of either published researches, third-party studies, third-party quantitative consumer researches, and other data that may support the claimed benefits. Okay, an example of which we chose Truck X for our deliveries because it is spacious and can carry weight up to 5 tons. So the phrase because it is spacious and can carry weight up to 5 tons becomes a service performance claim. And that has to be properly substantiated. 2 things to note. One is the ASC does not accept downloaded articles from the internet that have not been published. We also do not accept definitions coming from what do you call this? The one wherein definitions are gathered from various people. That we do not accept. Okay. it has to be from a third party source. And as far as the consumer research is concerned, it has to be quantitative. We do not accept qualitatives because qualitative studies are only indicative. These are not directional. Okay? Non-product or context claims, even if these are not non-product claims, these are still claims nonetheless. Example, the pandemic has caused so much or some businesses to downscale. Okay. This may be a fact, but it still has to be supported either by published articles, third-party studies, consumer researches, or the like. The next one would be product claims not related yet to product performance. In this case, company-owned signed documents signed by a very high-ranking official from the advertiser must be submitted to us. So these would be things like coverage, promo mechanics, improvements on the product, pricing, origin history, even in the example, flavors of the product. Okay. Now, if the product claim is related now to the product performance, that would then require as well third-party studies done on the product itself. Okay. Now we go to the 5 types of claims that we mentioned a while ago that will require an ad to be pre-screened with the ASC. The first one of which is number 1, or leadership claim. An example of this is the number 1 analgesic brand in Visayas. In this case, we will be looking for the most recent study on the 12-month sales data showing both volume and value. The reason why we ask for both volume and value is because a product may cost so little that the volume is too many, but the value is still small. Or the product may be too expensive that the volume is too small, but the value equivalent is too big. So that there is an equilibrium, we always ask for both volume and value, even if the claim is a global claim. Example, world's number 1 ice cream brand. We always look for the most recent 12 months volume and value data from an independent third-party source. Now, in the example, it is limited to only Visayas. So the study can also be limited to the specific area the claim is taking. An absolute claim, on the other hand, will require third-party clinicals on the product itself. Let's look at the example. Guaranteed to make your skin lighter in as fast as 7 days. It is the word guaranteed that makes it an absolute claim. In other words, the product will deliver all the time it is used the said benefit. And as such, the third-party clinicals to be done on the product itself must be a series of clinicals. And this is being asked to determine whether the performance is consistent or not. Okay. The third one is a comparative claim. So as the word suggests, it is comparing one product versus another. Example, product X provides a safer ride than product Y. Also, support-wise, we do require third-party technical test on the product itself. Okay? And because it is comparative in nature, we will always require a qualifier to be incorporated. Now, we have rules as far as location and size of the qualifier. Qualifiers must always be placed within close proximity of the claim, and it must be at least 50% the size of the claim. This is much like the rule that we apply in terms of um, translations on foreign languages. We see a lot of billboards that have that have foreign languages. We do whenever these pass through the ASC, we always ask that the translation is incorporated into the layout, and it must be at least 50% the size of the foreign language characters. Okay. The fourth is exclusivity claim. Example, brand X is the only one that has triple stain formula. In this case, packaging can be shown to show uniqueness of formulation. IPO, an IPO certification can also be used because we look at IPO as once you have it, you own it and no one else can use it. Or a third party technical test on the product itself vis-a-vis the competitors can also be done. And the last type of claim is superiority claim. This is the type of claim wherein the brand is saying it is the best or the most insofar as what it can provide. Example, brand Z is the most widely used cell phone in the country. Okay. In this case, based on the example, a third-party quantitative research study must be submitted following the agreed guidelines by the industry. Okay. So, as mentioned, ASC is all about responsible advertising. And to reiterate what Digna mentioned, responsible advertising is not just the role of ASC. It's not just the role of advertisers or the content creators. It is everyone's responsibility. From the owner to the creator to the implementer to the consumer and those in between. Thank you very much and good morning, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sir Robbie, and thank you so much, Miss Digna. Now, for our second speaker, we have the DTI Consumer Policy and Advocacy Bureau OIC Division Chief from the Consumer Advocacy Division, Ms. Marie Camille P. Castillo. Good morning po, Ma'am Camille. The floor is now yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, SM. Can you hear me well?
Then clear po.
All right. So, maraming salamat to our friends from the ASC for leading this presentation. Actually, we have been wanting to share with you this program to which many queries and complaints we receive regarding this issue, this concern. Madami po ang nagsasabi na nagre-report na iba naman po yung nandoon sa nakita naming material compared doon sa what we actually receive, things like that. And for our topic this morning, yung marami din pong materials o marami tayong mga produkto or service at that matter that has foreign language or foreign characters to which we don't understand. But sometimes we still use them. Bakit? Kasi we already have tasted the product, or we have already experienced using them. Kaya for us, okay lang sa atin yun. But let us make a pause and think na dapat po ang ating mga produkto, whether meron siyang foreign language or foreign character, meron po siyang translation. Yun lang po yung one major message that we would like to share with you this morning. Make sure na meron pong language that we understand what the product or service is talking about or telling us, no, for us to use it or for us to look at it and probably promote and probably share with others. So I have a presentation, by the way, on behalf of Attorney Che Carbonell, our Assistant Director. I was instructed to present this DAO 19-09 to you this morning. Meron lang po siyang another meeting that she was assigned to attend to. So I hope I'll give justice to the presentation. It's just a short one. But it's completely related to what ASC has been discussing. But at the same time, it's an awareness and reminder, no, for consumers and establishments, no, in operating appropriately, no, for the consumer protection that we usually ask for. So DAO 19-09, ano po ito? It's a DTI Department Administrative Order. It's about mandating the use of the Filipino and or English language in signages, billboards, advertisements, brochures, flyers, notices, advisories, labels, price tags or lists, menus, receipts, and other business or marketing materials. The scope is wide, but very particular, no, very specific on what we are talking about. Kasi nga po because of what happened before. Okay, next slide please, Bina. Okay, so recently, I think last month, we issued a reminder, no, that there should be English or Filipino translations for advertising or promotional materials that have foreign language or characters. Bakit po? Kasi po, in one of our daily activities, the CPAB was able to see some billboards and some transit advertisements. No, yun nandun po sa mga buses that only have foreign language or characters. Tapos wala po siyang translation. No? And we were disturbed about this kasi po, ang consumer like myself, no, and all the other CPAB officers and staff, we saw na unfair po siya sa consumer. Kasi we don't understand why they are what they are saying or what they are talking about. No? So that's why the media assisted us, no, helped us in disseminating this information, just to remind our establishments, our companies who have this advertising and promotional materials to be compliant, no, with this order, no, saying that kung mayroon pong anything na foreign content yung ating material, make sure lang po na merong katumbas na translation, either in English or Filipino. Remember po, way back in 2019, no, there were reports po na in Parañaque City, there are a lot of restaurants or establishments that only have foreign language or foreign character materials, no, or signages. Dito po yung at the bottom, yung photo at the bottom, nakita niyo po dyan si Secretary Mon Lopez. It's one of his visits in Parañaque City. In that area, no, marami po kasi tayong POGO establishments doon nearby. So marami din po ang restaurants na nagki-cater to the personnel of these POGO establishments. And most of them are foreigners. Kaya nga po they are using foreign language and foreign characters in their materials. So the secretary requested the CPAB, no, to strengthen the Consumer Act of the Philippines, now one of the provisions there in the Consumer Act of the Philippines, on the use of English and Filipino language or materials. So we prepared, we developed the DAO, strengthening the Consumer Act of the Philippines and specifying what are the things that we need to undertake just to make sure that our consumers understand, these content, in materials, in advertising or promotional materials with foreign content. So next slide, please. That started our DAO 19-09. So what are the legal basis of this order? Of course, this is from the 1987 Constitution. We just want you to understand paano po tayo nakarating dito. No? Section 7 of Article 14 says, ang Filipino at English are as the official languages of the Philippines for the purposes of communication and instruction. At that time, it was mentioned, no, since we can easily understand in English and Filipino, nagamitin natin ito, no, in all our communication and instructional materials. Another legal basis, next slide please, would be the Republic Act 7394 or the Consumer Act of the Philippines. So we are saying here that most of the materials are being studied against deceptive, unfair, and unconscionable sales acts and practices. No? So sinasabi natin dito, ang mga materials na may foreign character or foreign language, kapag walang translation, can be deceptive, unfair, and unconscionable sales act or practice. So, maari po siyang maging ganon. Bakit po? Kasi hindi po naiintindihan ng consumer. Oh. So, meron pong hint of panloloko or deception. At panliling lang na yung unconscionable sales act. So, that's one thing that we would want to prevent. Na hindi po magkaroon ng information ang consumer for them to fully understand what they are buying, what they are purchasing, or what they are using. So that's another legal basis, the Consumer Act of the Philippines. And next slide, please. No, specific also from the Consumer Act of the Philippines is Article 50. It is specifying the prohibition against deceptive sales act or practices. So I will not discuss that anymore. Next slide, please. So, ano po yung elements ng Article 50? No? One thing, yung prohibition against deceptive sales acts or practices, yung act of inducement. Ano po ba, what do you mean? No? What do we mean by inducement when we use this dito sa ating Consumer Act of the Philippines? Ang inducement po is an act of persuasion, no? An act of enticement para ma-attract mo sila in using that product or in buying that product or service. For example, in advertising, marami pong ganito. We can see, like here, an example would be a delicious image of a hamburger, no? And however, when you purchase it, when it comes to you, when it's delivered to your doorstep, ang itsura na niya ay ganito. No? So a small one, so thin, so wala pala siyang vegetables and things like that. So that's an element of this Consumer Act of the Philippines regarding deceptive sales act or practice. So yung element of inducement. So ginagamit yung persuasion by a certain individual or company or group or organization for you to finally purchase that product or use that product, and they will get profit from it. So that's unfair, di ba po? So next slide, please. An element, yan, I've mentioned it, an element of unfairness. No? Kasi nafe-feel ng consumer na, sandali lang, I saw this photo, it shows it's being illustrated that it should be like this, no? But in actual, iba ang itsura. For example, I remember si Yusek Ruth, no? Si Attorney Ruth Castello, she has a friend, bumili daw siya ng, no, actually si Yusek pala, she was interested in buying a floater, no? In Filipino, tawag natin salbabida, no? For swimming. So she just chose a simple one kasi, just for the purpose of using it in swimming. Pero nung dumating sa kanya, kasing laki lang siya ng donut. So yung actual size niya that we were expecting that would fit a person, no, in using that salbabida or floater, hindi nangyari. size lang siya ng donut. So, syempre, nakaka-disappoint, no? It's frustrating at the same time. It will anger you, no? That such unconscionable sales act or such practice was used, no, by that businessman or business entity for you to buy that product. Okay. So I think we're done with the legal basis of the order. Next slide, please. Yeah. So anong coverage nito nung ating order, no? The DTI. It applies to all business entities and establishments of nature engaged in the production, manufacture, distribution, supplying, or selling in the Philippines, no? Or all of any or all consumer products or service. So it applies to all establishments, no? And then Section 2, down 19-09 says, so all signages, billboards, advertisements, brochures, flyers, notices, advisories, labels, price tags, price lists, menus, receipts, and other business marketing materials shall be written or printed primarily in Filipino and or English language. Where such printed or written materials are necessary connected with the business of the establishment, its operations and products or service. So the order is saying that the Filipino or English languages must be used, no, in all these promotional and advertising materials para po maintindihan. Remember po, pag kumakain kayo, let's say you wanted to eat sa isang Chinese restaurant, no? Nakita niyo yung foreign, yung menu written in Chinese or Mandarin. Pero at the bottom, meron po siyang translation. So that's what we are reminding, no, our restaurants, no, our establishments. You can use foreign language or foreign characters as long as there are translations. Next slide, please. Okay. So the DAO says the use of foreign language or languages shall be allowed provided that a corresponding translation is made in both or either Filipino or English. And the English or Filipino language translation shall be as easily visible and legible as the foreign language. Okay? So baka naman po fine print, hindi natin mabasa yung translation. Mali po yun, no? We must make sure that the translations are also, well, if not, no, in equal size, but readable and legible for all those who are using it. Next slide, please. There are exceptions in the rule in this DAO, no? For example, the name of the establishment or of brand name, no, of the product, no. However, still it is necessary, no. There is a need for you to use a translation of that, brand name or name of company. Next slide, please. Okay, on the certifications, no, how can we know that that is the exact translation, no, of that foreign language, no, or foreign content? So certifications should be acquired, no, by the users. So it's either from the embassy of the country of whose language is sought to be translated, or an accredited translator or interpreter, or any competent individual or institution duly recognized by DTI. No? So there are 3 ways in which you can get your certification: from the embassy, from an accredited translator, or from the DTI recognized, institution. No? At this time for DTI, we are finalizing our guidelines. So we refer you to the accredited translator or interpreter or the embassy. Next slide, please. Okay, so we cannot do this job without help, no, or without the cooperation of other government offices and other private sector entities that have programs, no, that undergo or undertake programs, particularly on advertising and promotional activities, such as, of course, the ASC. No, so we are very much appreciative, no, on the work, no, on the programs of ASC, because they are helping the government. No? It's a self-policing program, but at the same time, it greatly assists, no, the government in making sure that consumers are protected. So thank you, ASC. So for the other government offices, we are in coordination with the SEC, the DA, the DOH, the FDA, the BIR, because of course they have their own jurisdiction on specific products and services, and at the same time the LGUs. Malaki po ang role ng LGUs dito. Katulad po nung pumunta kami noon sa Parañaque City, the LGU of Parañaque City assisted DTI and made sure that the establishments, the restaurants there beside Pogo offices would be complying with, no, with the rules, no, regarding the use of Filipino and English translations. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a specific office in the DTI in monitoring and enforcing this DAO and making sure that all establishments that do not comply, you know, with these rules would be charged of notice, would be provided a notice of compliance, at the same time charged, not eventually if necessary. We request assistance, no, of our consumers to help us in identifying these kinds of non-compliant materials. Alam ko po mas marami kayong oras, no, na umikot or makakita ng advertising or promotional materials like these. And we will appreciate it very much if the consumers or the other establishments or other private sector organizations could assist us and report to us what are these and where are these non-compliant materials. Okay. And next slide, please. Section 7, it specifies the sanctions, penal and administrative, for those who are found to be non-complying, with the provisions of this DAO. At the same time, the provisions of the Consumer Act of the Philippines. And ang ating pong offenses have specific fines, and also depending on the capitalization of the company. So the first offense from 1,000 to 100,000. On the second offense from 5,000 to 300,000, and the third offense from 5,000 to 300,000 also. But for the third offense, next slide, please. There is an imposition on the cancellation of the business name certificate from the DTI business name registration. At the same time, there's also a recommendation to the local government units to revoke the business permit registration. And of course, for each day that the violation is being continued, there's a fine of 1,000 pesos. So lastly, next slide, please. We are not saying that we cannot use foreign language or characters in our products or services. What we are saying is there is a need for you to have translations if there are foreign language or characters in your product or service, para po naman matulungan natin ang ating mga consumers. So for our consumers, exercise your rights and responsibilities on particularly for the compliance of the establishments on this rule. At the same time, for our businesses, continue lang po ang ating operations, but do not forget to comply with the necessary laws and rules of the country. Maraming salamat po and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for the very timely and informative presentations po, Miss Digna, Sir Robbie, and of course, Miss Camille. So, good morning po ulit sa ating higit na 200 participants here in Zoom and to everyone joining us via Facebook Live. So, before po tayo mag-proceed with the question and answer portion, short reminder lang po sa ating mga participants to stay muted unless you are addressing the speakers or the moderator directly. So please be also informed na makakapag-download po kayo ng copy ng presentation material after you accomplish the client satisfaction form that will be posted in the chat box section. Para naman po mas maging interactive ang ating question and answer portion, we encourage everyone to click the raise hand button so we can call you to ask directly to our speakers. And pwede nyo rin pong isend ang inyong questions sa ating chat box. So for our question and answer po. First question po for ASC, Ma'am Digna. What are the usual challenges in the self-regulatory activities and or programs of the ASC?
What are the usual
Challenges.
challenges?
Well, one is, we mentioned that ASC is composed of member organizations, no? So, we don't have any problems regulating the members of these associations. So, the one problem we do see is the non-members and how we can actually get them into the fold, no? Kasi sometimes we see, let's say, non-compliant advertisements, especially online, digital. So, what we do is we write to them, and sometimes we find we have difficulty in locating the manufacturer, or where do we send the email, or sometimes we send the email, they don't respond. Kasi siguro, because of the nature of the letter, we ask them to, explain why they did not, let's say, stay with us, especially since they have a claim. No? So, yun yung isang problema. And I think that's part of the MOU that we discussed with DTI, in the event that there are some advertisers who would refuse to recognize ASC, then we will report those to DTI so they can help us in in policing these advertisers.
Well, the other thing is that, of course, all of us, DTI, the ASC, even the other government organizations are all after consumer protection, which is ensconced in the Consumer Act of the Philippines. And this is also the reason why we always ask for proper substantiation. And there are times when we review what they submit, they would always ask the ASC, why isn't it enough? How come we need to submit all of these documentations? And it's basically because, number one, it is the rule, because we also apply the laws of the land. And number two, if we are not yet satisfied with what has been submitted, naturally, we will have to ask for additional substantiation for certain claims that are being made. So those are basically the things that we have to contend with.
Okay, thank you, Sir Robbie and Ms. Digna. Next question po again for you po. What are the how do you ensure that all members comply with the ASC's values and standards?
Okay. If I may, Digna.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the beauty of the system of having an S1 stage and an S2 stage. So even before the material is produced, we already look at the layout, the storyboard, and the script. And when they submit, like for instance, a storyboard, we require them to include as well a frame-by-frame description. Not only in terms of camera angling, but also in terms of what we how we should expect the actions will be. And if there is still a question in the minds of the ASC, then we include that in the comment section, that caution is being given on the execution of frame so and so. Please make sure it is not disparaging. Does not go against any of the values of acceptable to the society, so on and so forth. As Digna mentioned a while ago, we are not here to clip creativity, but at the end of the day, we will still have to make sure that these are within the bounds of what is acceptable in our society.
And to add to that, it's not just because it is the in thing in terms of language, in terms of action, that we already will allow it in advertising. There are some things that may be offensive to a certain group of people, so we still do not allow it in advertising. Kahit sabihin sa amin, yan ang uso ngayon eh. Kasi hindi lahat ng uso acceptable sa nakararami.
In fact, we follow a tenet that says, even if something is true, doesn't mean you can say it in advertising. Yun po.
Thank you, sir. Another question po ulit. And in the era of digital media, do you think the traditional advertising media materials, example, billboards, signages, and posters, are still effective in its purpose to advertise, promote, and educate the general public? If yes, how so?
Well, right now, if we look at the total number of applications on a daily basis, in ASC, around almost 40%, 54% are digital applications. But there is also an increase in the number of applications when it comes to out-of-home material, which would basically be billboards, the pylon signages, transit ads, so on and so forth. And we do believe that these are still very effective, especially since we have, well, it has been months since our economy opened, but people have been going out. And we believe that OOH continues to be a strong and effective medium, as well as the other traditional forms of media. We've seen as well the tie-up between two networks. So we can see that their presence is going to be it's going to be difficult not to see.
And actually, there is recognition by the DTI that there's some changes happening also in the media consumption of people, and that is why we also introduce in terms of applications what we call a multimedia application. So it transcends. It can be used for TV, digital, and even let's say electronic EOOH. If there is sound. So one material can be viewed by a consumer in various media or platforms. The same with static material. So it can be a print ad, it can be a poster, it can be a billboard, collateral. So depende na lang siguro kung saan pwedeng ma-hit yung consumer na yun. Pero we do allow that now, and I think also advertisers recognize that. Well, it's also a way of saving money, kasi one material it cuts across the platform. So there is a purpose naman for each of the medium.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Camille, you are also free to comment in DTI Consumer Advocacy's perspective naman po. Next question po. Does ASC also review or regulate online advertisement materials that are posted through the social media like YouTube, Facebook, etc.?
Yes po, we do po. As mentioned, because digital is generally post-screen, because of the so many number of ads being placed on digital, um, if the ad is for a product that belongs to the 5 must-screen categories, these will have to be pre-screened. Or if it contains any of the 5 must-screen claims, these will also have to be pre-screened. Other than that, we do have a monitoring of various social media sites. Okay, and that's being done by our compliance manager, the trio, and he's actually here beside us, Mr. Erwin Foraganan. He is so much into the monitoring of all these materials.
And also, that's the beauty of self-regulation. Competitors watch out for each other.
Yeah.
So a competitor will look for ads of not just one competitor, but really all the players in the category, and see if they are claiming something, or if they have an ad and they don't see the ASC reference number, then they report that to ASC. Okay.
Director Robbie and ED Digna, in the report that we sent to you, there were billboards that do not have the ASC number. Is that the serial code, ma'am, or how
Yes,
do we
that's
call
the
it?
ASC number po is the number that we give to each application, which signifies that it passed through the ASC to be screened. Majority of those you gave us did not have.
Do not. Yes.
Yes.
Yun na nga po, ma'am.
We are actually writing these other companies.
Yes.
And, to make them well, as a due process po, make them explain why they did not follow the DA 99, plus why did they not course their materials through ASC, because they utilize billboards or out-of-home materials, which is a mandatory medium.
And the beauty po of having the billboard sites as members of the ASC is that if there is any decision to issue a CDO, the billboard site is also copied with the decision, so that it is going to be easier to pull down the material.
Yeah, so it's a requirement for your number or code to be on the material.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am.
po. So, and I believe the similar letter po was sent to the out-of-home organization, and we are
Yes, ma'am.
coordinating po with them because they will also help us identify sino po yung billboard supplier.
Opo. Yeah.
We're
Thank
working
you.
on it, ma'am. We will
Thank
provide
you po.
feedback
Thank you din po.
Actually, it's our director who's so sipag in monitoring this. He comes from Parañaque, so every day he goes through all these billboards and some transit ads. So we appreciate his work. So sabi niya, kami, let's work with ASC again about this. And OHAAP?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Although we haven't actually discussed with them, but we would want to also have this active relationship with them.
Actually, member po sila ng ASC. So kung ano po, we already informed them about it, and then they also told that we sent the same letter. So we're working on it po.
All right. Thank you. Thank you po.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you po. Next
SM?
question.
Yeah.
From Consumer Wellmar for DTI naman po. Does this cover products purchased from Shopee, Lazada, or the likes coming from outside the Philippines? Manuals don't have any English translation. So this is about translation po, yung mga concern po.
Yes po. Yes, tama po kayo. Kasama po yan. Wala po tayong hinihiwalay no, na promotional or advertising material at that. So, please, I know that DTI po, hindi na naman po ganun kadami ang tao, but we would appreciate very much if you could report to us para po alam na po namin where to go, and definitely we'll take action on this po.
Hi, thank you so much, Ma'am Camille. Time check po, it's already 11:45, and siguro po last 5 to 7 questions na lang po from our participants, and we apologize that we can only accommodate few questions because of our limited time. So maraming salamat po sa mga nagtanong at mga magtatanong pa. Next question po for ASC po ulit. Does this mean that an advertising company is not allowed to post or broadcast its material if they were not able to secure ASC's clearance? Are there penalties and fines if they posted the material without ASC's approval?
Okay. Basically po, if the product should have screened the ad with the ASC, then the ad is implemented but not screened with us, yes, there will be penalties. We normally give a CDO. We normally issue a cease and desist order, and we copy furnish the various media platforms, whether it be the KBP for broadcast, TV and print. We also copy furnish the IMAP for digital. We copy furnish the UPMG for print. There. So all the media platforms will be covered by the CDO. And there are also, but before we do issue the CDO, we would always go through due process and ask for an explanation why they should not be penalized.
Also, part of the question is, will they be able to implement their material? For broadcast, KBP will always look for an ASC clearance. They will not air anything without an ASC clearance. OOH also, at least for the members of OHAP, they will also look for a clearance. No, unfortunately, there are still some billboard suppliers, siguro po isa o dalawang sites lang ang pag-aari, who are still not members. But we know that OHAP is conducting an aggressive, membership campaign, so that they can also have everyone in their fold and follow the regulations. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Also, yeah, if your materials do not have any translation, then your charges will be doubled because DTI is here to make sure that you comply.
Yes.
Thank you po. Next question from consumer Heriberto Tabadon for ASC. How long will each of the S1 application and S2 application processes take? Is the ASC adopting a quality management system? If yes, is such QMS duly certified by what certifying body?
Okay. Let's go first to the lead time. First question, the lead time. We usually release the decisions within 24 to 36 hours for each stage. So ganun po kabilis. If you apply, and the application is actually received between 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then the decision is released the following day, between 7 a.m. to around 2 p.m. Mga ganun po. So ganun po siya kabilis. Now, who actually screens the ad materials? These are, we call them screeners. And these are seasoned professionals who came from various fields of expertise. We have one po who graduated with a bachelor's in nursing. We have another one who used to be a marketing person in a pharmaceutical company. We have another one who headed the research department of the ADB and who worked with several consumer researches for the World Bank. We have another one who used to be a senior vice president of an advertising agency who used to handle alcohol beverages. We have another one who used to be also a vice president who handled telecommunications. So the expertise of the screeners within ASC is very broad, and while there is no certifying body that certifies their capacity, we are very much how would I put it? We are confident as far as their knowledge in terms of being able to review various advertisements
And the decisions really are dependent on the support documents submitted. So if you lack the support documents, then definitely that could be a reason for a disapproval or at least an incomplete. So yun. So ang lang yung mga clients or agencies, they really have to be careful in submitting support documents, no, and make sure that these are relevant and updated. Minsan po kasi may mga paso na mga researches or studies. So pagdating ho doon sa madi-disapprove sila kasi para kumbaga paso na rin yung validity ng information.
Okay, thank you po. Next question from Eco-Essential Foods Corporation, Ms. Dara Galiora for ASC po ulit. What if it is a static layout for a digital content? No material production needed since to be posted online. Do we submit both S1 and S2 applications forms already?
It will have to go through first an S1. We will have to review the layout first together and determine if there are claims that need to be substantiated. We will also look at the various government mandatory documents such as a CPR perhaps. If it is the first time that the ASC will get an application from your company, we will ask for the license to operate, the business permit, all of these things po. Now, you will still have to go through the S2 po because you will then have to show us the final material wherein the ASC reference code is already incorporated. There is a particular font type and font size po required for the ASC ref code para po hindi naman siya magmukhang nasa na siya doon, ang liit, hindi na namin mabasa. Yun po.
Para lang po sa kaalaman ninyo, meron na ho kami mga nahuli na nag-take din ho ng ASC reference numbers. So, alam po namin kasi kung ano yung mga letters and numbers na yon, ano ibig sabihin nun. So, madali ho mahuli. So, nasulatan ho sila at nagkaroon po ng penalty.
Okay, thank you po. Next question po from Mr. Jasper Carias for ASC po ulit. Kung bata po ang kasama sa advertisement, dapat po bang may DOLE at DSWD certification or permit? Paano po kung child actor or model na siya?
Okay po, very good question po. Basta po whether a child actor or an ordinary child, 15 and below, kailangan po yan ng dole permit po. Actually po, ang pinagmulan po niyan was, ma-share lang po natin. ang pinagmulan po niyan kasi merong isang teleserye na ginagawa noon wherein the children were asked to play their roles and be shot for more than 8 hours. So walang tulog yung mga bata and it was being done at night. So hindi sila nakakatulog during the specified time talaga ng kanilang pagpapahinga. In fact po, ang DOLE po normally pag magbigay sila ng permit sa amin, during the shoot, dumadaan din po sila to determine, number one, tama ba ang working hours because they're only allowed to work for 4 hours. Number two, is there enough rest space for the children? Tama ba ang pinapakain sa kanila? Mga ganun po ang tinitignan talaga ng DOLE. Yun po.
Okay, thank you po. We are down to our last 3 questions po. Question po again for ASC. I-mention niyo po, Sir Robbie, about sa foreign translation sa billboard. How do you ensure or check po if these are accurate translations to Philippine or English?
Thank you very much po for that wonderful question. When we receive po kasi the application, as mentioned by Ma'am Camille kanina, humihingi rin po kami ng certification from an accredited translator. Sometimes nga po, yung iba naming mga screeners marunong din ng mga foreign languages. Yung mga bagets po namin marunong mag-Korean. Inaaral talaga nila po yan. So pag meron silang mga nakikita, sorry. They would normally go to us, Digna, Erwin, and myself, and they will say, "Sir, parang hindi po tama yung translation nito, even if it was certified. Parang hindi po tama." So what we do is we ask the applicant to get or to vet it with another translator, this time coming from perhaps the embassy. Parang yung sinabi po talaga ni Ms. Camille kanina. So para yung third party na pinanggagalingan, hindi po questionable yung authority to really translate. Yun po.
List translators. Ma'am Camille, question lang po. Meron po bang list ang DTI ng mga accredited or na translators?
For now, ma'am, we're still finalizing our guidelines.
Okay.
Opo, we're doing that. Yun nga, we discussed it last week po, kasi we raised it dahil there was a question about or a query about that, sino daw po. So there was a draft before about it, pero hindi yata siya na-finalize. So we're reviewing that copy, ma'am. We'll make sure that you'll get the draft, ma'am, para you can also comment.
Yes, parang aligned mo tayo din. Kasi
Yes.
use that list, diba? Na, para wala lang question talaga.
Opo. Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you.
Okay, next question po for ASC po ulit. Ang mga employer branding or recruitment videos po ba ay need pang ipa-approve sa ASC?
Okay. Normally po, if it is being implemented wherein the public can see it and there are certain claims, like for instance, from the number 1 telecommunications company, blah, blah, we are looking for. So meron siyang number 1 claim. And if it is going to be implemented to the public so that they can gather a lot of resumes, that will be required to be screened with the ASC. Kasi po, merong must screen claim. Ang nakakatakot po kasi dyan is like a number 1 claim is not something that you can claim forever. It is what we call a time-bound claim. So 1 year lang yan usually, and then the following year you will have to show another set of updated proof. Yun po.
Meron din pong nangyari din sa amin, case na I think it's a new company na gusto rin mag-advertise for recruitment, di ba? Well, the first thing that we asked them is, can you show us a license to operate? Kasi baka mamaya recruit yung pala, illegal recruiter naman pala din kayo. You're not even allowed by the government. Di ba? You don't have the necessary permits. So, nung parang inabandon. Parang inabandon ho yung application. Siguro kasi nga, nung hininga na namin sila ng mga permits na yan.
Okay, salamat po. Last question na po tayo for DTI and ASC. For clarification, saan po dapat mag-file ng complaint ang mga consumers or general public for dishonest or non-compliant advertising materials? What are the complaints being handled by ASC and DTI in relation to our topic today?
Ma'am Camille?
Sige, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. With ASC po, we practically deal, number one, with contempt complaints, meaning if there is something in the ad that you believe is not true, that can be complained. Now, who can complain? A competitor can complain. A consumer can complain. Okay. We have in fact received consumer complaints about presentations, meaning pag merong pinapakitang hindi naman tama or hindi ka nais-nais, executions that go against what are acceptable insofar as our value formation is concerned. Yun po, tinatanggap din po namin yan. All you need to do is to write to inquiry at asc.com.ph. That goes directly po to Ms. Digna Santos. Okay? What you can do is also copy furnish me, Robbie, that's ROBBIE dot Aligada, ALIGADA at asc.com.ph, as well as our compliance manager, Erwin, ERWIN dot Furaganan, FURAGGANAN at asc.com.ph. So it's always best po to email the three of us so that if one is out, the other two can take over po. And we'll be very much open to look into it and reply to you. Yun po.
For DTI naman po, we have our DTI hotline. It's 1384. We also have our mobile number 0917-834-3330. And we have our social media accounts, DTI Consumer Care. That's through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we also have our email address, consumercare@dti.gov.ph. So kung mayroon po kayong nakikita ng mga produkto or serbisyo, like you mentioned earlier, yung mga manuals in foreign characters, report nyo po sa amin and para po we can provide an action towards it. Thank you po.
So thank you so much, Edie Digna, Sir Robbie, and Miss Camille. And we hope na marami pong natutunan ng ating mga consumers. Ngayon naman po, would you like to give a short message po for our participants? Miss Digna, Sir Robbie.
We'd just like to reiterate that, ASC is here to help ensure consumer protection through false, untruthful, and indecent advertising. And but we also need your help. No? As we said, it is not just ASC's function. It's not just our responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. And for those in the audience who are clients or advertisers, it really also starts with you. You have to make sure that the products and services that you offer can actually deliver the promise that you're making. No? Kasi even if you have a very nice advertising material, but your product is lousy, no? It cannot deliver its promise. Madali lang mamamatay yung product mo kasi entice yung consumers na i-try yung product mo kasi ang ganda ng advertising mo, but when they try your product, it will miserably fail in terms of expectation. So, first and foremost, make sure that your product is honest, no? And it can deliver the promise it gives. Thank you po. I'd also like to say that we also implement the tenet of ignorance of the law excuses no one. So it is important that for us to be responsible, we need to know the laws and the rules. Let's take time to read and understand. The DTI has all the numbers that we can reach, all the measures by which they can be reached. We also gave the details of how we can be reached. So for any questions, we're just a click away. So to speak.
Ms. Camille?
All right. This morning's session is a clear illustration of a public-private partnership, no, for consumer protection. Ang ASC po, ang DTI, ang mga members po ng ASC, at ang mga opisina ng DTI, we are here, no, to make sure that consumers receive proper protection and, of course, assistance or help, no, in any concern or product or issue that you have on products and services. So, wag po kayong mag-alala pagdating po sa mga advertising and promotional materials, the DTI and the ASC are together, no, in fighting non-compliant materials and making sure that you are protected as consumers. At the same time, we are reminding the consumers that you also have your responsibilities, that although you have your rights, kailangan po tulong-tulong tayo mga consumers in making sure na ligtas po tayo palagi. So maging mapanuri at wais na consumer. Maraming salamat po.
Muli, maraming salamat po sa ating very capable speakers ngayong umaga, Edie Digna, Sir Robbie, and Miss Camille. At mula po sa Consumer Protection Group, maraming salamat po sa ating mga participants na nakasama natin ngayong umaga. Huwag niyo pong kalimutang samahan kaming muli sa aming mga susunod na webinars. At we are also inviting you po sa ating CCWS 190th webinar, ang ating virtual tour or exhibit of the National Museum of the Philippines, its Natural History and Fine Arts Building this Thursday, August 18, 2022. Our announcements will be posted in our social media accounts. So for more updates po, please like, follow, and subscribe to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and YouTube account, that's DTI Consumer Care and DTI Philippines. Also, kindly accomplish and submit the survey form po para makakuha din po kayo ng copy ng link at para ma-download ang presentation na ginamit ngayong umaga. Thank you so much everyone and stay safe.